Hey there, how you doing? Welcome to the channel. So today talk about something a little more serious, but we're going to talk about, there's all this talk out there of something called vaccine passports. Now, of course, this is because, we have the cerveza sickness running around the world. What we're going to do is discuss just basically my views on this. And of course, this is not medical advice, and I am not a medical expert. But I just want to put my 2 cents in on this. So the concept loosely is that, if you never traveled internationally, you may not really understand this, but if you've traveled internationally, basically if you're in the US, can you leave the US? And the answer is, well, generally, no. I mean, you used to be able, I live in the San Diego area, so you used to be able to, go over to Mexico. You could go over there, no big deal, with your driver's license, and that was okay. But now I think they require the passport. Now, Canada, I don't know if they still let you go over with the driver's license. They may. But generally, anywhere else that you would want to go, you need a passport. So basically, your passport is, you have to go to the government office at Passport Control and fill out all the paperwork, basically prove your citizenship, prove that you were born here, et cetera, and meet all the requirements. And it usually takes, a month and whatever. So the point is that, generally speaking, you can't leave the country. You can't leave the US unless you have a passport, because no other country is going to let you in unless you show your passport. Right. So basically, that's how things work, and it worked for a very long time. And of course, I guess a few things about that. If you don't have a passport, it would be good to get one, so that you have the flexibility of going. You just go through the pain and get it done. So okay, so the concept now is that we've had this cerveza sickness run around the world, and now we have vaccines for them. And now the view is that, like, hey, we want to make sure that people are vaccinated, right? And the concept is what they call immunity passport. So just like you need a normal passport to go anywhere or do anything, the concept is that you would have a vaccine passport. And the way it would work, it could work very similar. Either, you have a piece of paper, which is not really the preferred way they want to go, but they'd rather have the app on your phone. And basically it's like, okay, it's filled out and proves that you have, gotten your COVID-19 vaccine. So conceptually, if we look at this, there's a couple different angles on this. One angle is like, look, a lot of people are like very conspiratorial, and it's not, from my perspective, it's not all that way. It's not like this one big conspiracy. It's just this natural thing where, there are people that do have good intentions, that like, or look, if we want to keep things safe, the more people that are vaccinated, et cetera, it would just help prevent future outbreaks, right? And we know we've had people die from this, et cetera, et cetera. So it would, help protect against that. Because if you had people that weren't vaccinated, first of all, it would do two things. One, it would encourage them to get vaccinated. And then the other thing, it would, help, people be assured, like, for example, at the airport, that people are traveling, well, they're all vaccinated, so it should be low risk of having an outbreak, right? So there is, I'm acknowledging that there's a legitimate concern and a legitimate, basically, a good intention to an extent. Then there's the other side, which is, no, they really want control. And there's some people that are like that as well. And part of it comes from two different things. One is just, getting people, as I talked about, just basically, if you were running a cruise ship, et cetera, and running an airport, the government running an airport, TSA, et cetera. And if you knew everyone was vaccinated, then you're going to have a much lower risk of an outbreak, right? Okay, so there's that part. But so now the issue is, there's several issues with this. And right now, one of the biggest areas, beyond just general civil liberties, like, the problem is, why is my personal health a public issue? What has happened in this very short time of little over a year of this cerveza sickness is it's just amazing now. It's like we've had this situation where um, we've gone like literally in some ways I think the world is suffering from some mental illness here. But the thing is, you've gone from a situation where it's like people are, now your personal health, whether you're vaccinated or not, is suddenly a big issue, a public health issue. And this is this, in many ways, it's very disturbing because basically, um, where is this going to go? Right now it's like, oh, it's just the COVID-19, but is it really going to stop there? So you have the civil liberties and the creep of more and more control. I mean, if they're going to sit there and require that you had a COVID-19, why aren't they going to make sure that you have everything else that they recommend? HPV, this, that, the other thing, measles, mumps, everything. I mean, why wouldn't they just expand it to every single thing? And of course, now they have an excuse. They're like, well, look, we had all these people die from this thing, this cerveza sickness. And so we have to protect the people, right? So we have to make sure that everyone's vaccinated, right? So there's that angle to it. And of course, it's not going to stop there. And this is the problem. People think that people buy into the government narrative that, oh, well, we're just going to stop here. We just need to do it for this thing because it's so serious. And look, they're not going to stop. Now, so this becomes a huge human rights issue. So the first thing I want to talk about with this is let's go to some CDC data. Okay, so we're going to share and we're going to go to the CDC website here. So let's see, one of the problems is they talk about things that vaccines are safe, right? And they keep using the word safe, and so safe is a meaningless word. Okay, it's not how it works. It's not like something is safe and therefore you can take it and there's no risk of having a problem. That's not how it works. What's happening is that they give you something, and any medical procedure, the safe is just determined by the probability of there being an issue and probability of a serious adverse event or dying or whatever it is. And if that threshold is low enough, it's deemed safe, right? And that's legitimately what it is. There's always a probability there. Nothing is 100%. They say something's safe. It doesn't mean you can't die from it. It doesn't mean you can have an adverse reaction that could have serious consequences. It's not what it means. So what we do is we go to the vaccine. Now, see, I'm going to their website, cdc.gov, vaccines, ACIP. So they did this update, and I'm going to show you here. So COVID-19, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I should block that out. I'm going to get thing. But this is their data. So they did this safety study, which is great. And this in January. So this data is it's getting a little bit old, but I think January 18th, they say. So they go through it. They're using vSafe. They talk about how they're doing it. They have the reporting system. And basically, they come up with the data. So the first thing is looking at the overall. So we got the Pfizer one, the 12 million, Moderna 10 million, 21 million vaccinated overall. So, and then we have the pregnancies, they're reporting that because it wasn't originally cleared for that. But see, so what's happening is people are getting pregnant before and after, et cetera. And so that data is going to build up over time. So now here's, just the basic usual reactivity and stuff, normal stuff you expect, right? Nausea, a little pain and everything. And then it's actually nice that they have it per the type. So that's kind of good, but they seem kind of consistent. So, okay, so they all seem about the same. And so they have all that data. So that's good. So now what we want to do, reports to VAERS after 19. So here's your events, non-serious adverse events percent. And so you had 1,300 for Moderna. Wow, a lot for biotech. Pfizer, but Pfizer has a lot more, but still that's a lot more non-serious AEs reported. Because I think Moderna was 10 million and Pfizer is twice as much, but this is like, call it 6 times as much. So interesting. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is good data to check out. Like if you have options for which one you want to get, find out which one you're going to get, and you can go look at this yourself, right? So this is power and this is information that you should use. Here's the, head egg. This is all the standard fine stuff. you're fine, right? And so they talk more about this. Now I want to get down here, trials, blah blah blah, and I want to get down to the more serious adverse events. And it's good that they provide this data. Update on anaphylaxis. So anaphylaxis, like the word is like anaphylactic shock, and but the anaphylaxis, I mean, it's a serious allergic type of event, and this is something that's serious and it may need hospitalization, and people can die from it, right? So they have the study on that. So what this means is that what they're saying here is for the Pfizer one, there was 50 reported cases of it. So 50 people had anaphylaxis and Moderna had 21. And so that kind of that's kind of consistent across the board, right? So basically there's twice as many of this one as this. So consistently expected to be twice as many cases. So that is what you have. And the median age. So it's interesting that it's younger people, not younger and younger, but like people like not even 40 are having this, which is kind of interesting. So, and then they report, they're trying to report the dose in minutes till symptom onset. So this is important. So most are within 30 minutes or less. So this is the thing, if you're getting it, if they ask you to kind of just hang out in the waiting room or something like that, this is why. And I think they had guidance on this. Now I haven't got mine yet, and I don't know if I'll get it, but the point is, this is why they're asking you to just go hang out, right? Because if you have something coming on and they're around medical people, they can do something to help you if it happens. And as you can see, you're talking like a total of 70 people out of something like 30 million people that got the vaccine. So it's very, very, very small percent, right? But, they're just trying to be safe there. And so, so here we go. And then they summarize 5 per million doses, 2.8 per million doses. So that's kind of what it is. So that's a serious event there, right? Now, reports of deaths and mortality. So we're going to here. Once again, they did this study. So here's really getting to the point. So they've got 196 reported deaths. Okay. So, and here it is. So it's hitting the old people. So here's kind of, and then look at that, 129, 66% were in long-term care faculties. So, it's sort of, that's kind of what's going on here, right? So basically if you're old, and if you're that old, if you're 80 years old, it's worth it, right, to get the vaccine, because if you look at all the death numbers from in terms of your risk of dying from this thing, it's very high. So, but unfortunately, there's obviously they're struggling to survive it. But the point, so 196 died. So this is what the CDC is reporting. Reports of death following, and they go through all this. Let's see, estimated background about following vaccination. This is interesting, estimated background mortality among 1.3 million vaccinated over a risk period, expect 11,440 deaths among 4% following vaccination. By comparison, they have 129. Okay. So this is interesting. They're talking about somewhere in here, they've done some estimate that they expected 11,000 people in long-term care to die from the vaccine, is what it looks like. And then, but they're seeing that they've only had this 129 reports. So it's actually turned out much better. So it's actually much safer than they thought. So here's the thing. This is what you got to understand. And, people don't understand this, and the media is terrible about this, and our public officials are terrible about this, and the medical community is terrible about this. You're sitting out there, this is what they say. They say, oh, it's safe, right? Okay. And that means to people that, hey, nothing's going to happen to me. It's safe, right? But the reality is there is a risk there, and it's a very small risk, but there is a risk there. So therefore, it's not crazy to think that some people are like, hey, I don't want to take the risk. What if they, for whatever reason, they're like, hey, look, I don't want to go on a cruise. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Or maybe I do, but I don't want to take the risk. It's not irrational. Although statistically you can say that, hey, the data, it sort of verges on irrational. The simple fact is that there is risk there, right? And so now going back to the immunity passports. So now you have a situation where they want to basically force you to get it. And if you don't get it, you're going to be discriminated against. That's what's really going to happen, because basically they're going to allow private companies. So private companies are going to be like, hey, look, if I'm running the cruise, you got to show, you got to have the passport. Even if the government doesn't require it, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to show me the passport or we're not going to let you on the cruise ship, right? So right there, if you're one of these people, now they've recommended for people because they've had these anaphylaxis, right? That we just showed the data. So it's small percent, but there's some people that get anaphylaxis. Now, the sad part is that you don't necessarily know that you are have a risk of having a type of reaction like that. You don't really know. And of course, when it comes to kids, it's really, really sad because you really don't know. But beyond that, let's forget about it. What if you know? What if you know and you're like, hey, my doctor says, I have this risk. I've gone into anaphylaxis before when I've had various medical procedures or had other vaccines. And my doctor's like, no, you should not take it. And what's going to happen to you? Now, here's where it gets really nasty. You're going to say, well, no, you're going to talk to your doctor and your doctor is going to give you a waiver, right? And then that's how it's going to be. And your passport's going to say you weren't vaccinated, but you have a waiver from your doctor. Everything's cool, right? Well, no, it's not cool. It's not. In California, we have, this SB 17 or whatever it was, this law that required that kids have a certain minimum amount of vaccines or they can't go to school. Well, what has been the result of that law, right? What has been the result? The result has been the following. The result has been that we've had, a lot. Basically, what happens is the school nurse now becomes the gatekeeper, whether your kid can go to school or not, because the school nurse has to check and make sure you have all your vaccine. It's public record now what vaccines you had or did not, item one, and needs to check that you have, waiver if you have a waiver. Now, the problem that turned out is that, well, the government wasn't happy with the amount of waivers. They're like, hey, there's too many waivers here. And what did they do? So they basically threaten doctors that are writing too many waivers. They threaten them. They threaten them with losing their license. So what you have is a situation where doctors who may be like, hey, it's not worth the risk for you to take this particular one, and therefore I will write a waiver for you. Well, that doctor is not going to be able to do that. So it happens. So now what you have to understand is what's really going to happen here. You're going to have a situation where it's like, okay, look, my doctor says I shouldn't have it. Well, your doctor now is going to face pressure and threat of losing their license because, well, no, that's not good enough. Hey, my patient had went into anaphylaxis, had to go to the hospital for 2 days and almost died. Is that good enough for you? No. They should try it again. It may not happen again. Literally, that's how some of these people think. When you read into it, they're like, well, you don't know. That was a different one. Maybe this one will be fine. Like, dude, if you go into like shock and have to go to the hospital, you're not going to want to take another one. So the point is, although they will talk to you that they will have flexibility and you'll have a waiver, that's not how it's going to work. The waiver will be there, but the problem is they're going to put so much pressure on the doctors. They're going to threaten doctors that have written too many waivers, who might be an expert, by the way. You might have doctors that write a bunch of waivers because, oh, they're experts in that kind of thing, or they may be a little more activist. But the point is that you have the situation where TSA, like, do you really, like, how many people really believe the TSA is keeping air travel safe? I mean, do you really believe that? I mean, I get the thing where it's like, if you had nothing, maybe that would be a little too much, but do you really think these people are competent? I mean, just, you go through like TSA, you're like, it's just a joke, right? It's just a joke that we all go through. It's like, okay, whatever, just don't say anything and just like suck it up so you can get through it and get to the other side and go on your darn plane, right? But these are now the people that are going to be checking your passport, your immunity passport. And these are the people that say, well, no, they're going to be like, well, no, we don't accept waivers. Like, there's nothing stopping them from saying, no, we're at the blah, blah, blah airport. We don't accept waivers, so you can't go in. Like, there's nothing stopping them. In these, you've dealt with these people. These are not, I'm sorry, but they're not the smartest people. And these are, yeah, and so now who is the gatekeeper? It's someone equivalent to the TSA is the gatekeeper, whether you get to fly or not fly. And they will put pressure, and basically what they're going to do is they're going to force you to basically go get that vaccine, even if your doctor is like, medically, it's not okay. And keep in mind that this will expand. Like other countries aren't even like in the US, we're a little more, we still have a little bit more freedom. Other countries, no. Other countries are going to be like, no, we don't accept waivers. We don't care. We're not going to let you fly here. And so so what is this all going to add up to? You're going to have it. First of all, it's discrimination. Be very clear. It's discrimination. If you don't have that vaccine passport, if you don't have it saying you got the dose, you're going to be discriminated against. You're not going to be able to go on cruises. You're not going to be able to fly. You're not going to be able to do this, that, and the other thing. You're going to be discriminated against. So be very clear about what that is. Now, of course, people are going to say, but no, this is for a good reason. Okay, so the discrimination is all right if you feel it's for a good reason. It's always like shifting sands, right? That's what's going to happen. And the other thing, hey, it's going to happen. Other countries are going to be, like I said, they're going to be more strict about it. They're going to be like, well, no, we don't accept exemptions. So you can't go into whatever country it's going to be. Like, I just have a feeling like England and Great Britain is going to be that way. So that's why this whole thing of the vax passports is an extremely slippery slope. It's extremely dangerous. Let me look at it this way. From the U.S. perspective, being in the U.S., it's like, look, we should had a different approach to this from the beginning. And our approach should be, look, you have rights and you have freedoms. We're really strongly encouraging you to do this. We need you to do this. And I see that now. They have some marketing and all that stuff. And you know what? That's fine. That's fine. Be straightforward with us. Like CDC reported the data. Okay, report the data. Keep reporting the data. Be straightforward and direct with us, and that will, over time, trust will be built up in it, okay? That's how to handle it. But we have these people out there, and this is the problem. We have this wokeness out there. We have this political divide, and on one side we have and I don't know where the AOC position is, but she's like this leftist authoritarian. It's like, we need to create lists of people that voted for Trump and all this nonsense. And so these type of people are the same kind of people that are like, we have to make sure that people are vaccinated. We have to make them prove it, blah, blah, blah. And I can't explain it to you, but just living on it in the California side where it's been, we've had all these problems with exemptions. I can assure you 100%, this is what's happened. If you're a person that is prone to shock, they're not going to give you an exemption. You may get an exemption from your doctor. It's not going to be accepted everywhere. It may be at first, but it's eventually not going to be accepted. And you're going to be discriminated against. And the sad part is that no one's going to, because it's politically incorrect right now, no one's going to defend you. Think about it. You're like, let's say you're a person and you're like, hey, I've had shock before with a variety of medical procedures, not just vaccines and stuff. If you're that person, you're going to be screwed. You're like, hey, I want to take a cruise. No, you can't take a cruise. You can't. That's what it's going to be. So we have a situation where you can see it right now. There's going to be massive discrimination out there. All right, that's it for this one. Talk to you later. Bye.